Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the fourth webinar hosted by the Cape Town Basketball Association. Let's talk Cape Town basketball. Our topic tonight is governance in our sport. My name is Jason Mitchell. I'll be your host for this session. And we are very excited to have one of the well-known figures in basketball administration, not only in Cape Town. He also served on Western Cape structures and also on other structures across the country, Mr. Joseph Mangadi. Joe, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Oh, thank you very much, Jason, for the invite, and good evening to whoever is watching.
Yeah, great. Joseph, so I've just briefly introduced you. We have a very important topic this evening, and I think it's important that people watching understands the sort of track record that you have, where you come from, what you stand for. Would you mind, just as a starting point, just giving us a brief introduction into your background and your history, where you served basketball, and why did Cape Town Basketball Association to get this decide to get this man on the show to talk about governance? Just give us some background so that people can understand the context within which you represent this important topic.
Yes, yeah. No, I must say that my sporting background is quite long. I think like most boys in the township, I started my sporting in football. But I could not kick a ball to save my life. So I switched to tennis. So I played tennis for a while, and I got sucked into administration. And I was part of the Duduza Youth Tennis Club Committee. So from a very young age, I was involved in committees. And then my introduction to basketball happened luckily here in the Western Cape. I came to study at UWC, and while I was at UWC, still playing tennis, some basketball guys saw me, and obviously I'm 6 foot, and everybody who's 6 foot automatically is a basketball player. So they recruited me to play for UWC basketball, and I joined them. And as I say, once you start bouncing the ball, you can never start bouncing the ball. So I started my playing career at UWC, and after I finished my university at UWC, I did some. Funny enough, the first time I met Tony Gom, I think like most people, and Don, I did some tabling for a while after my playing days, and then I went back to Gauteng because I'm not originally from the Western Cape. So I went back to Gauteng, and when I go to Gauteng, in my township, Duduza, there were a couple of guys who were playing basketball way long before I played basketball. But I realized that from the time when they started playing basketball, they've not gone anywhere. And obviously, I was fortunate enough to have played for what we call then Western Province Basketball Association. So I had some idea in terms of how a basketball structure should be run. So I got my hands dirty. I was part of the Duduza Magic basketball club, and when I was involved with them, I realized that there is no district association in my township. So together with some guys in Ekurhuleni, we formed the Ekurhuleni Basketball Association. I think with my gray hair, you can see that was in the early 2000s. I think long before everybody was thinking about district associations. We formed Ekurhuleni Basketball Association, and from Ekurhuleni Basketball Association, I was elected as the chair of Ekurhuleni Basketball Association. And then when I was part of the Ekurhuleni Basketball Association, we realized that Gauteng Basketball Association itself is not properly functioning. So we decided we wanted to be part of Gauteng Basketball Association. And I must say that for me, this is where my understanding of governance came in, because managing a club and managing a district, yes, you deal with governance issues, but managing a province, and especially a province as big as Gauteng, and also as critical to basketball as Gauteng, I think that's where I got to understand governance. So I was the president of Gauteng Basketball Association, and then I moved back to Cape Town. I moved back to Cape Town, and when I came back to Cape Town, because I had the experience, I had the knowledge, I was asked to be part of Cape Town Basketball Association. Then it was still called Western Province, and then we changed it to Cape Town Basketball Association. I must say that a lot of people were not happy with me when we changed it, but I think later on, I think everybody realized it was for the best. And I think then my last stint as an administrator of basketball was as Western Cape Basketball Association General Secretary.
Yeah.
So it's quite a long story.
Yeah, no, and I think it was important just to create the context for everyone. And I must say that we are extremely happy that you couldn't kick a soccer ball or hit a tennis ball as well as you managed the basketball, because I think the broader basketball community benefited from it. And I want to say thank you to the guys from UWC that had such a good eye in order to spot you. So whoever's tuned in from UWC, thank you very much for your talent identification ability there. We are all grateful and thankful. So Joe, I think let's get into it. Our topic today is governance, and very often, when you throw this word in the air, people look at you as a disruptor of the norm. They look at you as someone that's trying to be difficult. I've experienced it, you've experienced it, I've experienced it with you. How would you explain this concept in sport? How would you explain it in simple terms to someone that would say to you, you're so big on this thing called governance? What is it all about? How would you contextualize it? Joe, you still with me? Just whilst we are trying to get Joseph back, he seems to be stuck on his side there. We're doing what we can to get him back. But for those who are tuned in, we just want to say that we are allowing some comments during the session. So if you would like to interact with us, pose a question, and perhaps ask for clarity, you're welcome to just pop us a message. I see Joe's back. Joe, we lost you there for a minute or so. I hope you got my question. I'm going to allow you to answer if you did. If not, you must let me know.
Yeah, if you may please return. I think when I was gone, I missed some of the question.
Yeah, no. So I was basically asking you just to create a clear understanding of what this term governance in sport is all about. A lot of people are not excited about the topic, and I think it's because they don't understand the topic well enough. So how would you explain it in basic and straightforward terms to someone that's tuned in tonight?
Yeah, I think for me, governance, I'm going to try to simplify it. It's more like parenting. If you are a child, you normally would have a parent who's going to guide you in terms of where you need to be going in life. They probably are going to give you a couple of rules. That in life, if you want to succeed in life, you must do this. You mustn't do this. You must behave in a particular way. So they guide you through life. But the difference between parenting and sport governance is that we are our own parents in this context. So we don't have a parent on top of us telling us what to do and how to behave. We parent ourselves. And as our own parents, we then decide how are we going to rule ourselves, how we're going to create systems and structures that are going to make sure that we succeed. So I think for me, the two key words are the systems and structures. If you don't have the systems in place, if you don't have the structures in place, then you don't have governance. You can say you are doing governance, but anyone will ask you, what kind of systems do you have? What kind of structures do you have? Are those systems and structures helping you to achieve your goal? Because I think that's the important thing, is that governance is not just governance for the sake of governance and for the sake of having system structures. You do governance so that you can be able to achieve your goal. And if you're not able to achieve your goal, you then look at your system, look at the structures, and say, perhaps my system is not correct, perhaps my structure is not correct. Let me fix it so that they can be able to achieve your goal. So I think just Ben, just generally, it's just the system, the structures that we agree we want to put in place so that we can be able to achieve our goal of developing and promoting basketball. So just check your
sorry about that. Thank you.
Sure.
Just to bring it home, so and also to bring it to basketball specifically in the Western Cape. So when you talk about structures, our structures in the Western Cape are made up of district associations who affiliates to a provincial structure. And it's therefore important that the structures that you are referring to holds each other accountable. The one cannot be the other by identity. So ideally you shouldn't have a Cape Town Basketball Association accounting to a Western Cape Basketball Association who is the same people. That then would not make the structures effective. What would your comment be on that?
Yes, no, definitely. Because one of the key pillars of any governance is making sure that there is accountability. So if I'm reporting to myself, nobody can hold me accountable. So one needs to be held accountable. If you're saying that I'm going to go to the shops, somebody must be able to say, have you gone to the shop? But you said you're going to go to the shop, so somebody must hold me accountable. So I think it's very important that there is that distinction, so that we can do as we said we wanted to do.
Sure. Okay. So I think that the take-home message out of that one is systems and structures to ensure accountability, and that can quality assure each other. And it's not a policing system. It's really a system of making sure that the structure that is in place is doing what it's supposed to be doing in the interest of developing the game. Would that capture it accurately?
Yes, no, definitely. And I think I also want to just bring it back home is that it's not just a matter of Cape Town Basketball Association and Western Cape Basketball Association. It's a matter of even within a club. Yeah. So within a club, you would have all of us. We are all players. We all want to go somewhere, and we decide. You know what, guys? If we need to make a decision, we can't all the time meet all of us and make a decision. So we said, Jason, we think that you're the one who can make decisions for us and be able to represent us. But me as a member, I still need to hold Jason accountable and say, Jason, we said you must lead us, and we agreed that this is how you're going to lead us. But now you seem to be leading us left. So I think it's very important that people understand that it's not just about from association to association. It's from me as an individual, holding my own club accountable, and for me as a club or us as a club, holding Cape Town Basketball Association accountable. I think if we're not holding each other accountable to the things that we agreed we're going to do and achieve, then there is no governance. And so I think it's important to understand it's from the most basic and the most foundational level where governance actually begins.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that creates a nice context for the discussion as we go along. So your experience in the Western Cape, your experience in Cape Town, your involvement in your township up in Gauteng, and also in Gauteng Basketball Association, based on what we've just defined as governance and how it should be manifested in our structures, how would you describe the appetite towards governance in basketball? Would you say there's a good culture related to it?
Yeah. I think this is where the problem begins. Is that most of us are players first, including myself. So I'm a player. The first thing that I want to do if I'm not playing, I want to teach other people how to play basketball. Once I've got people that want to learn basketball, and I'll teach them how to play basketball. I also want to promote basketball to the community out there. So I want people to come and experience this nice feeling of playing basketball. You know what I mean? I want to look cool if I can look cool and earn some popularity points. So most of us we engage with basketball, and I would even say sport generally, from I'm a player first, and everything I do in terms of basketball might speak to me as a player and my experience in playing. And I think we fail to understand that there is a difference between recreation and sport. Yeah. Anybody can take a ball and then go bounce a ball. They can play 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3. They can organize games. But that does not necessarily mean that it is sport. Yeah, you can still play basketball as a recreational activity. But once you say it is a sport, you then need to understand that it needs to be structured. Yeah. And if you say structured, it needs to be formalized. Unfortunately, most of us, we first of all learn how to play, then we learn how to coach, we learn how to ref, and we're very comfortable with that because I mean that's basically why we're involved in the sport in the first place. Most of us have never learned how to administer a sport. We still think that sport is just about bouncing the ball. As long as the ball is bouncing, we are involved in sport. But from my experience, we actually have been more involved in recreation than sport. Sport means actually there must be a proper structure in place, and I think that that's where most of us are not getting it. We think that as long as UCT is available, we play games on a Saturday and Sunday, then we are involved in the sport. We're still not doing sport. We're still doing recreation. Yes, we're part of Cape Town Basketball Association. We're part of BSA. We might play FIBA, but until we understand that sport is basically about structures and formal structures, and I think most of it we're not there yet.
Joseph, just to get clarity on what you are saying and maybe to expand a little bit. So we have players progressing through the system and they want to keep their game alive. They want to ensure that, their interest is protected as players, that there would be a club in the future. And they are not necessarily capacitated as administrators of the sport. Are you then saying that we are not doing enough to develop the administrative capacity that there needs to be in our sport? Or is it just, we don't care culture? What do you think the reason is that we are finding us in the position that we are in at the moment?
Yeah. I think you touched on a very important point there to say that are we doing enough to develop people to be administrators? Yeah. If I'm a player, I probably will have a coach who is coaching me, and everybody knows that if you want to coach, probably if our mother body was well structured, as it has been in some other time, you will have a coaching course that you need to attend. Yeah. So CDBA will organize a coaching course, and you will have some of the coaches coming to share their knowledge. BSA will then run formal coaching courses, and we also have FIBA courses. So throughout in basketball, we've had a number of coaching courses. I think from when I was playing in the 90s, we had a Caltex coaching program there. And then later on, the Engine came, there was also a coaching program. Even now, recently, in the past couple of years, we had the FIBA level 1 and FIBA level 2 coaching. So from a playing perspective, there's a lot of coaching courses. And then also for technicians, if I want to rev, from in the beginning of the year, CDBA will organize a course for referees and umpires, and you'll be graded, whether you grade 1, grade 2 within Cape Town, and then you will have your national grading and even FIBA grading. So for coaching and technical, yes, we try to prepare. But for administration, in all my life in basketball, I've never attended a basketball administration course. I've never seen one in basketball. So for me, I think that then that tells us that we have not put as much emphasis as we should on developing administrators. Most of us we learn on the job. You go to a meeting. You talk about maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that, and then they think, oh, okay, no, this guy seems like he knows what he's talking about. Okay, so you will be in a committee now. Oh yeah, no, I'll be in a committee because I seem like I know what I'm talking about. But people don't know what I'm talking about. They don't know what I'm talking about because most of us who go to these meetings have, for argument's sake, we've not even read on meeting procedure. Yeah, I go to a CDCBA meeting. Do I know what a meeting procedure looks like? Am I familiar with the Rogers rules of procedure in terms of just basic meeting procedure? So we go to a meeting, we fight, and then most of the things that we're fighting about actually are just procedural issues. If we all understood the basic meeting procedures, we probably would not be fighting as much as we should. Yeah, and once you put me into the committee, I then come and then I say I'm going to do this. Do you know how to hold me accountable as an administrator? Do you know what are the competencies, the skills, and the behaviors that I should be doing as an administrator? So what happens in basketball is that I become fortunate enough to be in the committee, and because I'm in the committee, I will then teach myself and I'll learn as much as possible about administration and about basketball administration. So when I stand in front of people and I talk from a very informed point of view as a committee member, but the people that I'm talking to are not informed about basic administration. So how can they hold me accountable when they don't know what the basic administration is? And I think for me, that's where we need to understand is that we can't hold Western Cape Basketball Association or BSA accountable if we don't know what basic sport governance and sport management is. So for me, if one is running a club, you say, I'm the chairperson, I'm the manager in a particular club. You actually have to know what is sport governance and sport management so that you can hold Jason accountable, you can hold Western Cape accountable, and hold BSA accountable properly.
Joe, so I'd like to maybe just again expand a little bit more. I think these are important concepts that we are touching, and we won't be able to cover everything, but I think to give the audience, the membership, as much insight as possible. So I think there's two things that I just want to elaborate on based on your answer now. Now you've described it, is the need for succession planning in terms of administration. You would have guys coming through the ranks as players, and so that's the next Western Cape national point guard, as an example. But we don't have that culture when it comes to administration, either in the club or in the district association or in the Western Cape Association. And for me, there is a need for that. And I want to link that to how you've started to elaborate on the accountability levels. So we have our individual, where you started earlier, moving to the club, moving to the district and provincial association, obviously up to national then. How would you say that the accountability mechanisms need to start rolling practically? What needs to happen for people to hold leadership accountable in those respective structures? And if you can just bring in the capacity building as part of, I've been elected as the CTBA chairperson, I serve a term of 2 years, what happens next? Is it up to me to decide, how do I mentor someone, or is it actually the membership that must decide that? What are your views on those two concepts?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we need to put in place, is that we normally we would elect a committee and say, committee, we've elected you, but then how do we evaluate that particular committee? Do we have a certain mechanism or a certain criteria in which we evaluate that committee, particularly in terms of the governance pillars? And I think in most instances, we actually don't have that evaluation criteria. Normally, it's no how is the league running, or the league is running fine, so the executive is doing his job because the league is running fine. But is that what the executive is supposed to be doing? Are they supposed to just make sure that the league is running fine? What else is the executive supposed to be doing? What goals did we set for them to say that in terms of marketing basketball in Cape Town, we need so many people to be aware that there's something called Cape Town Basketball Association, for instance. In terms of financial management, we need to make sure that by the end of your term, CDBA has a reserves account, it has an investment account, it has sponsorship. You know what I mean? So we need to be very specific about what the executive are supposed to be doing. And I think once we become that specific, when I am in a club and I want to be part of the executive, I know exactly the kind of competencies I need to develop. And we are able to then identify or to say that somebody has a background in financial management. They are part of a particular club, and that club finances are in order. Every time when we ask for financial statement, they're able to give us financial statement. How then are we going to prepare that person to be part of CDBA? Do we make them part of the commission and say we have a CDBA finance commission? Can you please be part of the commission? And I think I'm very happy that CBA has identified and realized the importance of commissions, because your commissions is actually where you develop your next governance. They first go to a commission or committee, do their dirty work, understand the organization. By the time that they assume the executive level, they at least are aware in terms of how CDBA governance should operate. So I think the committees and the commissions for me are very, very important in developing your next leaders.
Okay. Joe, let's move on to, and I want to stick to on the accountability theme. So in business, you have structures or entities that defines a accountability framework or good governance framework. In business, you have the King's Report that gets issued in South Africa to say for a business to be regarded as accountable and compliant to good governance, you need to tick the following boxes. You've mentioned some of the things, and in sport we have the EPG grouping, which does the same for our industry. Maybe just as a introduction, just explain what this EPG concept is, and what has the EPG been saying about basketball?
I'll first laugh and then I'll explain. But I think that this is where most basketball people need to maybe learn more about. I think as some of us are aware is that we have a very painful history as a country in terms of sport. As I said, I've played sport almost all my life. I've played different kinds of sport, but in terms of making sure that the club that I belong to can actually be called clubs, we never had the opportunity. So in 2011, the minister called a sports indaba to say to sports people, let's come together and decide what is best for our sport in the country. So when the sports indaba met, by that time there was no clarity in terms of how exactly is sports governed in this country. How can we move from a playing nation to a winning nation? So when the sports stakeholders met in 2011, they decided that they will have a transformation charter. So the transformation charter is supposed to transform our sport from merely playing, merely recreational, merely developmental to a winning nation. So they decided that they will develop a mechanism in which they were able to say, this is a charter, this is where we want to be as a country. For us to reach there, these are the things we need to be able to put in place so that we can achieve our goal of being a winning nation. Hence the transformation charter. So the transformation charter came into being, and the Indaba decided, government, we don't trust you enough. We don't think that you can be very objective in how you assess whether we as associations are actually meeting the objectives. So it was decided that there will be an eminent persons group that will help the minister So from the Indaba, which we all as sport people agreed, the minister then appointed the eminent persons group. So their job is to audit all the associations as agreed from the sports Indaba. That we agreed on the sports transformation. These are the pillars of the sport transformation. So how is your association performing in terms of the pillars that we all agreed we should achieve? So the eminent persons group does the audits on an annual basis. They send a survey. They get information from the association. Then from the from the information that they gather, they then produce a report. So from the report, it looks at different pillars. I think it's important that people understand this, because normally when you talk about the transformation charter, people just think about how many Black African, how many Black coloreds, how many Indians, how many whites do you have? But the charter says no. But the transformation in terms of your demographics is not the only one. Governance is an important part of the transformation charter. And I think this is where we as basketball has been found wanting many a times. From the first publication of the charter where basketball was included, it was very apparent then that our governance structures are not where they're supposed to be. We do not have proper provincial association, we didn't have proper district association, we didn't have proper basketball clubs. Yeah. And I think we now in the I think it's a sixth, if I'm not mistaken. This is a sixth edition of the transformation charter. And unfortunately, from when basketball was first audited to where basketball is now, we actually have gone backwards in terms of our governance. Our governance has collapsed. When the EPG wants to get data from PSA, they can't get the data from PSA. The reason why they can't get the data from PSA is because PSA can't get the data from provincial associations, because most of them don't exist. If they exist, they're not properly structured. And the provincial association, if they exist, they don't get the correct information from the district association. So everything begins at district level. If there is no district association, no properly structured district association, with no proper admin, there is no way that basketball can then get proper information. And I think this is where we've been lacking. We perform very dismally. I think in the last EPG report, they said that we only complying with something like less than 10% in terms of governance. And I think even some of the findings were basically saying we actually, we provided information that cannot be used. Basically, if they wanted to, they could have said we zero complying in terms of governance. So it has been a sore point. It was not the first time that this was raised. It was raised in the past couple of 5 findings, and unfortunately for us as basketball, we have not taken the EPG report seriously. I think we've just dismissed it as admin, this burdensome admin, and the only thing that we want to do, we just want to play. So as long as we're playing, we're fine. And I think the EPG reports, it's quite clear that playing is just a creation. If you're a sport, you need to have governance with the playing. Without the governance and you're just playing, you really are not a proper structure. You're not a proper sport association.
Yeah. So I based on what you said, I just want to for the common understanding of everyone. So the information that gets fed into the EPG report is obtained via the National Association. Is that correct? Okay, and therefore you've mentioned how it cascades down from national to provincial to district to club and to individual, and that is one of the reasons why properly constituted bodies at each of these levels are so critically important. That we cannot rely on one group of people to supply this information, whilst the rest of our structures are not aligned, are not giving effect to these things. I think that's an important point to make, because one of the EPG reports that I read said that BSA was in no position to provide information because it was not obtainable from their membership, and that's a reflection on all of us,
Yeah.
not BSA. Would you have any comments on
Yes,
that?
yeah. And I think one of the misconceptions in basketball, I think, unfortunately, I have to say, particularly here in Cape Town, is that if Cape Town is fine, we in Cape Town, we're our admin in order. If somebody comes today and said, can you please give me a database? CBA can give the database within a blink of an eye. Yeah, so we are fine. And then somebody goes to Cape Winelands. Cape Winelands, can you please give me a database? Cape Winelands will tell you we don't have that database. Yes, we have people that are playing. Here's the names of the people that are playing. No, but give me a proper database with how old they are, what is their gender, what is their so-called race. You just give me proper statistics. Are they referees? Are they players? Are they coaches? Are they doing both? Where do they stay? So we as CDBA can provide that information because in our forms we accommodate that. But just our neighbor we can't provide that. And if Cape Winelands can provide it, which obviously it's one of the I wanted to say all the structures, but it has produced some of the best players. What more about the other districts in the province? Yeah, so we are fine here in Cape Town, but if the rest of Western Cape is not fine, according to the PG, we are not fine at all. And I think that's what everybody needs to understand is that it is not enough to say that we are fine in Cape Town. We don't care what happens in Eden. We don't care what happens in Cape Winelands. We don't care what happens in the Eastern Cape. If they're disorganized, that's their baby. The APG report says Cape Town, you probably are making 5% of basketball in the country. And if the 95% of the country is not okay, basketball is not okay. We don't care whether you Cape Town are fine, you're not basketball, you just Cape Town. And I hope for me that's what everybody understands, that it is not enough to only look at yourself. We as Cape Town, we're part of a system, and the system is Basketball South Africa. And I think this is where I'm going to be a little bit personal here to say it actually is our fiduciary duty as members of Basketball SA. Because I mean, once you become a member of CDBA, you become a member of Basketball SA. So it is our duty as members of BSA to ensure that BSA as a whole functions. Not just my club, to say my club is fine, as long as my club admin are fine. What happens in the club next door? No, I don't care what happens in the club next door. They're none of my business. The only thing I care about is my player going to be able to play in the national team. I don't care if the club that was there last year I was competing against is dead tomorrow, and then there's another club that comes and then it's dead again tomorrow. We are saying we actually don't care about basketball. We only care about ourselves and what basketball can do for us. But because we're part of a system, and as part of the system means, unfortunately, you have to make sure that the whole system works. Because according to the EPG, if the rest of the system is not working, sorry, Cape Town, you also are not working.
Yeah, Joanna, maybe just for the context and the information of everyone else, Cape Town has its challenges with exactly the things that you have highlighted. We are trying to consolidate our database. We are trying to deal with the fact that individuals don't necessarily want to align. So I just want to say to everyone, Joseph has been making some hypothetical examples and not necessarily saying that Cape Town is on the right track perfectly. So we have our own work to do. I say that for me and my committee, and I say that for our members, that we don't have the false sense of comfort that we are okay. I don't think we are. Joe, we are quickly running out of time, and I know that we can't address all the issues, but having had this discussion and your experience that you've outlined, and we could see it coming through in the session, how do we fix governance in basketball? Apart from the things that you have mentioned, what are the basic things of advice and things that you can suggest to us that are in administrative positions in basketball structures that we need to ensure to improve our levels of governance in our structures?
Yeah. I think the first that needs to be done is that the Cape Town Basketball Association Executive Committee needs to go to a sport governance workshop as soon as yesterday. I'm sure that you can get service providers who can give you a proper sports governance workshop to say that this is what sport governance is all about. As an executive committee, this is your responsibilities. These are your duties. This is what you need to do. So once the executive has gone to that workshop, I will also recommend that, in fact, all the clubs, I think, again, I'm going to be very personal, to say it is mandatory. It's not optional. It is mandatory for all the clubs to go to a sport governance workshop so that they can be able to hold you accountable and say, wait a minute, committee, according to sports governance, this is what you should be doing, and you have not done it. You know what I mean? So I would highly recommend that the committee goes to a sport governance workshop and takes the whole association meeting. Going to the workshop is not good enough. I think my experience at BSA has taught me that you can take people to a course and they will enjoy the course and very informative. A couple of months after the course, most of them will not even bother to go back to the material and say, okay, what exactly is this thing? How does this thing work? Or to go back and look at the system and structure that we currently have and say, I went to the course. The course says we should have 1, 2, 3. Let me check. Do we have the 1, 2, 3? Oh no, we don't. CDBA, perhaps we should have 1, 2, 3 as recommended in the course. Yeah. So once you've gone to the course, you must come back and then put in place plans. Yeah. And say, in terms of governance, where are we? How is our clubs? Do all our clubs have constitutions? Do all our clubs have meetings where they meet? Do all our clubs have bank accounts? Do they have website where people can see what's happening in the website? Do all our clubs have strategic plans and annual plans? I'm not just talking about CBA now, the club itself. So we need to make sure that the club themselves are properly governed and properly administered. And here I think it's where I'm going to be very unpopular, is that governance about compliance, and anything that has to do with compliance, it means enforcement. It needs to be enforced. It's not an option that I can choose to comply with governance or I have an option not to comply with governance. I think the FPG report is telling us that that's the attitude that we've adopted as basketball. To say, yes, we know what compliance is. Yes, ideally we should, but actually we could not be bothered because it's not important. What is important, as long as we can play, we can appear on SuperSport, our players can go and play internationally, it means everything is fine. We don't bother with the enforcement part of compliance. To say, if you know that in terms of the governance ethics, for instance, the ethics dictate that this is how one should behave. And if somebody does not behave in the way that we've all agreed, because I think everybody needs to understand that governance is not CDBA or Jason or the executive telling people what they should do. Governance is what we all agreed to do. When you agree to be a member of CDBA, you agree to abide and to promote the constitution of CDBA. So the enforcement of the constitution of CDBA, it's not just a Jason's issue. I, as an individual member, I need to make sure that CDBA constitution is upheld and that it is enforced. So unfortunately, I think personally, I think we've gone past the stage of pleading and convincing and begging people to comply with governance. The APG report says we are in a crisis, and in any crisis, you have to enforce. If you don't enforce, the crisis is not going to end. So for me, we need to educate people more. Once we've educated them, we put in place the system and structures. Once we have the system and structures in place, we now enforce them. Unfortunately, we will have to be very blunt and sometimes be uncompromising about it, because I mean that's what everybody has agreed. It's the same with the transformation charter. Everybody agreed to transformation charter, and the minister tried to give people leeway to correct themselves, and the minister decided, you know what, we've given people enough carrot. They've eaten the carrot, they've grown fat, they are not going anywhere. We're now going to use a stick. They decided, basketball, you're not getting any funding from us. Go sort yourself out. Until you sort yourself out, you're not getting any funding from us. And unfortunately, that's an attitude we might have to take even among ourselves, to say, we've taken you to a course on governance. We've told you what is it that you need to have in place. We've given you a deadline in terms of when that needs to be done. You still have not complied. Unfortunately, we then have to do something. There has to be consequences. If there's no consequences, my experience in basketball is nothing's going to get done. You know, people are just going to say, oh, okay, yes, I know, but there's no consequence. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, for me, it's time that we enforce. It's time that there should be consequences for not following governance.
Yeah. Joseph, thank you. I think that gives us good insight, and it's given us something to think about in terms of how we go forward in terms of governance in Cape Town basketball specifically, but just in the broader basketball community. Joe, we've fast run out of time, as I've indicated. I'm going to give you a minute, perhaps, to just share any final thoughts, anything that you may have wanted to contribute and bring to the table that wasn't asked. So, over to you for final remarks.
I think for me it's just to say, to quote the former president who passed away, Rolihlahla Mandela. He said that it seems impossible. Governance seems complicated. It seems so out there. It seems so foreign. But he said, until it is done. And I firmly believe it can be done. We can achieve good governance in basketball if we put our hearts and our minds and our energies to it. The same energy that we expect players to come to training, to be on training on time. When we say suicide, they must run the suicide. They must show commitment in the suicide. The same energy we put in coaching. If I'm a coach, I'm going to try and find out what is coaching is all about. I'll spend hours and hours trying to make myself better as a coach. Governance is also, it requires the same energy. It's not something that we will do when we have time, when we can. It's something that we need to be committed to it and put as much energy into it. And I firmly believe that it can be done. I think there's enough evidence here in Cape Town. There's enough evidence nationally in basketball, not even outside of basketball, within basketball. There's enough evidence to say it can be done, only if we are committed.
Thank you. I think to round it up, but it requires a bit of a culture change. It requires a bit of change in our thinking. You've made the point that there are good practice principles and examples in our structure. Member clubs who, for years, successfully, obtained lotto funding, and that means there are proper structures in place in that club. And we must be bold enough to put our hand up and say, we need to learn from you and understand what it is that you are doing. So yes, we'll take that. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for your time. It's really much appreciated. And I'm glad the Cape Town bug has bitten you, that you are back in Cape Town. We will certainly touch base with you going forward to make sure that we can gain more insight and more understanding. So thank you on behalf of the CTBA. To everyone tuned in, perhaps just one or two final thoughts. I just want to say this is our final webinar for the year, for 2020. It was a new medium for us. It's something that we didn't do in the past, but we have very quickly realized that in order to stay relevant and in order to continue to reach more people, we need to expand our thinking, our capabilities, and this is certainly a platform that we're going to use going forward. I just want to remind members, the CTBA is currently busy with an affiliation process. which is part of our governance framework. Members, please to indicate the affiliation, confirm that we've extended the deadline to this coming Saturday. Please do so as soon as you can so that we know who our members are and who intends to be part of the structure going forward. The last two things I want to say is that the Cape Town Basketball Association has obviously during this time also been advocating around the issue of gender-based violence in our society, and more than just advocating and messaging, what we have intentionally done is to say that women must not only be protected by others in society, but they must also serve and stand up and take up leadership responsibilities. And with that in mind, we are saying that we have formed a structure that does that, and we invite all our female members to align to our Women's and Girls Commission, who will continue to canvass for us and that the issues around women in sport and in women in basketball. The last thing, colleagues, very important, I think, is COVID-19. It remains with us. It remains an issue. We heard in the last 24 hours that the second wave has hit us. And I do believe now is the time to be extremely responsible. There is no urgent need to go out and expose ourselves, our members, our families. And for that reason, we are leaning towards caution to avoid any issue around basketball becoming a hotspot for the spread of the virus. So my message is really to members to stay safe. Please take the necessary precautions inside and outside the basketball community wherever you go. We want to see everyone back next year. Our plan is to start our league in March 2021. And that's why our affiliation and our planning processes is already underway. So thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in. We will be communicating via our social media platforms in terms of our plans for 2021. And we look forward to having as many of you involved in our game. Thank you once more and all the best to everyone.